Welcome to Retail Retold, the stories behind how that store landed in your neighborhood. I'm Chris Ressa, in conversation with the people and stories shaping retail and real estate. Brought to you by DLC.
Can't talk. I'm starting this whatchamacallit. What's that?
Dinner?
No, this podcast that they're interviewing me. So let me call you when it's over. You're back? Dinner. Fuck you, dinner. Goodbye.
Bye.
Can you hear me? I can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yeah, it says host is not in the meeting yet. Yes,
Oh,
you are.
I'm actually, no, it's the woman Tori is the host. She's not
Oh,
coming.
okay.
She's not coming, but I'm in the meeting. How are you?
Good. How you doing? Here I am.
I am, I'm rocking and rolling. Um, so, uh, we're going back to the office in July, so I'm excited about that.
That's good.
Yeah, I'm excited to get back to the office. We just started business travel, which I'm excited about.
You will be for a couple of weeks, and then it'll be back to the same way.
Well, yeah, for sure. But it's good to see some assets that I wasn't able to go see. That's good to do, right? And it feels like we're like overcompensating. So my travel schedule's picked up tremendously. So we're packing it in, but uh, it's good to be out and about, and you can read and hear from the field about things that are happening in certain markets, but it feels different to go see it. So
And when was the last time you flew?
so I flew in February of 2020, and
Right.
then I flew the next time I flew after that was April of 2021. So
Yeah. I
and
know. We flew from Naples to Atlanta, and it was the first flight that I was on since February of 2020. There's so much I forgot. Like, I mean, where's my boarding pass? Where's the TSA number? Where's all this? Where's that? And getting on the plane, then it was fine, but little anxiety. And it didn't come natural to me. And of course, being away for a year, I lost my premier status. And I had to sit, in the back. And the little miniature, it was easy. You had to wear your mask. But they did give out little sodas, little Cokes, okay? And they told you if you're going to sip your Coke, you must pick up your mask and drink it and put it down. So all these rules.
I'm vaccinated,
So am I.
but what I think is interesting, I used to see people in airports who were wearing masks, pre-pandemic, different cultures
Right.
with masks. And quite candidly, I really didn't understand it. And
Mhm.
now clearly we understand.
Right.
One of the things that's interesting is I haven't been sick in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had a cold, not a sniffle.
Right. Right. Everybody.
I think in airports, I'm going to wear a mask forever, regardless of social distancing. I think I'm wearing a mask forever in airports.
Really? Okay. Good deal.
I think that's one where I'm wearing, because as I look back, I think after flights and travel, I think I always ended up with maybe like a little cough or a sniffle or something.
Right.
Then I think, clearly mask wearing has, I think it's a really easy correlate to say, well, I've been out and about, I haven't gotten sick, but I wear a mask everywhere. And so that's probably why. I think it's an easy correlate. And so I think airports are a place where I don't know that I'm ever not wearing a mask.
Well, I'll tell you, I was at the Knicks Hawks game here in Atlanta on Friday night,
Yeah.
and it was like 16,000 people. And I would say 90%, because they asked you to, and they give it to you if you didn't have one. 90% of the people wore the masks during the game, and it was kind of interesting. And listen, I have a little bit different philosophy in the sense that right now I've had both shots. Like you, haven't been sick, but I I felt so confined for the last year. Okay, in whether it was in Naples or whether it was in here, I'm so glad to be out
Same.
and watching 16,000 people having a good time. I mean, that's it revitalizes you. So
Yeah, it's
my
energizing.
wife, on the other hand, I have to wear a mask to bed. I have, so, but I've been married a little bit longer than you. You get used to that. So anyway.
So one of the things, I have young children who are not eligible to be vaccinated yet. So we would like to vaccinate, get our kids the vaccine. And since they can't get vaccinated yet, it's still uncertain whether, even though I'm vaccinated, can I get it and pass it along to my kids?
Right.
I think, so there's a little anxiety about that.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense.
There's a little anxiety about that. So I sent you an email with kind of what we were going to discuss today. I'll review that real quick, which is: one, I am going to intro you.
Mm-hmm.
Two, you're going to tell a little bit about who you are.
Right.
Then three, I have those three fun questions for you.
Got it.
Then we'll spend a couple of minutes just talk about, you know, where retail is right now in the marketplace. And, you have an interesting perspective because you're a little bit outside looking in with all this experience. And so I think that's a good lens.
Mm-hmm.
Then we'll move into the story. And I think you're telling the story. I know you can change it, but you were going to tell the
I
story.
changed it. I changed it. Yeah, it's going to be how I got Apple into Cumberland Mall and
Perfect.
what it took to get there. It's much more interesting.
And then the last thing is I ask 3 more fun questions. So,
Okay.
so introducing you, what I was going to say is, so how long were you in retail real estate?
Since '86.
So
So the
I'm going
34
to
years.
say you were over 30 years in retail real estate, and you were, you worked in the real estate department at the Gap, and you ended up being the head of real estate at the Gap, and you were the head of leasing for General Growth. You're now since retired, and I'll welcome you to the show.
Okay, so some of what I'm going to say is redundant to what you just said, but it'll be a little more detailed.
Perfect.
Okay, got it.
All right.
I already did some notes. Good.
Perfect.
Okay.
You tell me when you're ready.
I'm ready whenever you are, man.
All right, great. Welcome to Retail Retold, everyone. Today I'm joined by Alan Barocas. Alan was the former head of real estate for the Gap. He was the head of leasing for General Growth. He's been in the industry for over 30 years. He's since retired. He's in Naples now. Excited for him to be here. Welcome to the show, Alan.
Thanks, man. It's good to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. So, Alan, tell us a little bit more about who you are and your story.
Okay. So out of college, went to UAlbany in New York, and 2 weeks after graduation, while some of my friends went off to Europe and across country, I went to work. The first, I'd say, 10 years of my career was in retail with department stores. And I had various positions there in merchandising, buying, store management, etc. And at that time, department stores back in the late 70s, 78, 79, 80, department stores were having problems. Some of them were going out of business, etc. And so I got approached by the Gap stores to come work for them. They had recently purchased a 600 store chain, so they had doubled the size of the company, and they were looking for people with managerial experience, merchandising experience, etc. So I joined the Gap. Plus, it came with a company car, so that was the hook. That was the hook. But so my first 5 years with the Gap was in several multi-store responsibilities. A district manager. I was an HR director in our distribution center in Erlanger, Kentucky. Imagine me trying to convince my wife to go from New Jersey to Kentucky, but it was a good time. It was a good time. But then shortly, I was there for 2 years. Then I joined the real estate department. At the time, in real estate, the Gap had seven real estate deal makers around the country. We had offices in New York, Philadelphia, Dallas, Chicago, and San Francisco. None of us started in real estate. We all came from the field operations. We knew the culture of the company. We knew what worked, etc. So I got my feet wet in real estate at that time. So I started out as an associate leasing rep, and 15 years later, I was promoted to senior vice president of real estate and construction. So I headed up the function. The best move of my life, and it was life changing, for me. So did that, and then in 2006, I had been there for about 20 years with the company, and I was on the West Coast. My 2 kids, who were grown and married, but no kids, no children, they were on the East Coast. I saw them 5 times in 5 years, or 6 years that I was out in California. And I said, you know what? Let's see what page 2 looks like. So I left. We sold our house in San Francisco in 5 days for more money than I'd ever imagined, and we went back east. And so I knew I wasn't retired, but I knew I wanted to do something. And I always liked building new businesses. So I started my own consulting service, AJB and Associates. And what I did was initially I started out with some retailers and brands like Under Armour and Calvin Klein were two of them, helping them to build their real estate strategy because they wanted to go retail. And so they were my first clients. And while I was doing that, I started to get calls from landlords who were basically saying, listen, I have this center. Could you come out and tell me what you think? Think about it, what we could do. Or I'm looking to develop this type of center in this market. Could you come out to look at the market, look at this? And I found out that having retail perspective was valuable to the
Right.
landlord community. So, I
Right.
did that. And from there, I was doing work. Well, this was simultaneous. And I did some work for some private equity companies, analyzing some of their potential purchases, looking at the fleets and telling me their risk rewards were, et cetera. And doing very well, making more money than I ever made at the Gap. Now, no equity, because equity is wealth, dollars are
Right.
not. But then a friend of mine in the business, Sandeep Mathrani, who had become close to when I was head of real estate at the Gap, and he was head of leasing at Vornado. And we kept in touch, and we became friends. He was named CEO of General Growth Properties to help take them out of bankruptcy. So he made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and but I thought it might be interesting to see what it would be like on the other side.
Right.
So I joined his executive team. So from there I was there for 6.5 years. We took the company out of bankruptcy and to a point where it was very profitable. And but then I said, I thought this was a 2-year gig, he said, and it ended up being 6.5. And I was getting a little bit older. And I said, time to enjoy. We had just bought a place in Naples, and I wanted to spend time with my 4 grandkids. They're a little older now, 14 down to 8, but they're very important. So um, I, I I told him I'm leaving in a year and a half. And what I did during that year and a half is I found my replacement internally, and I worked with that individual so that we transitioned in that year and a half, and that's when everything was fine, and I left. So I've been retired since 2000. It'll be 4 years this coming June 30th, so 2017.
Wow.
And during that, it's not like going. Well, it's part of another question that I might be asked later, but I'll just say that it was a great move. I've been able to balance personal life, but I've also been able to stay close to the business, and I've had some advisory positions, consulting business. But right now, I'm retired, and if I can fit some of those other things in, I will.
I- that, that's great. What a great career, great story. I think would be interesting, going from being a retailer for so long to being a landlord. What was the most unexpected thing that you saw from being that you didn't realize being a landlord versus being a retailer?
I guess there- there's there's always been this constant war between retailers and landlords, and everybody thinks that each side is being selfish and unrealistic, and it's all about rent. But when
Right.
you get on the other side, you find that it's landlords have expenses too, you know, and and what it takes to develop, it's a long-term investment. Um, and I found that there's you can have have a major impact on the retail landscape if you've got a working formula. And I enjoyed my time as a landlord. I used to get a lot of grief from my colleagues on the retail side. One of the things that a landlord was trying to take advantage of me when I was at the Gap, because I wasn't paying enough rent, and I would say something to the effect of, "Listen, why should I suffer because I'm successful?"
Right.
Okay. So I remember Andy Lane from Victoria's Secret was in our office, and he's saying, Alan, why should we suffer because we're successful? And I said, you know, and he said, because you taught me that, Alan. And I said, Andy, you're right. You shouldn't suffer. But there's a part 2 to that center. You shouldn't suffer because you're successful, but neither should I. So how do we come to an agreement? Okay. And I also found that the landlord side contrary to what some people may think, is much more willing to compromise if it makes sense. Because it's a financial. It's all about financials. It's all
Right.
about and for a retailer, they have their 2 or 3 little financial numbers they have to hit, which they usually hit them very easily, and that's it. Okay, for the deal maker. But in the landlord side, it's much more a financially driven process.
Totally makes sense, and that's that story. The Victoria's Secret story is a good one. So let's take a moment and let's get to a little bit to get to know Alan a little bit better. I've got 3 questions for you. Are you ready? We call this clear the air.
Go ahead.
All right. When is the last time you did something for the first time?
I retired.
Touche. That's a good
I
one.
mean, I thought about that question. Say retiring. You can retire and you can retire.
That's right.
What does that mean? So yeah, retire.
Okay. Question 2. What is one skill you don't possess but wish you did?
Play the guitar.
I am certainly not musically inclined. Wish I was, but I am.
I love music, and I would love. I've tried many times, but once you get to chords, it's a waste. I can't do it. I can't do it.
What what type of music do you listen to? What do you like to listen to?
I'm pretty eclectic on music. I love classic rock from the 60s, 70s, and the 80s. But I love classical music.
Okay.
I love blues. I love Billie Holiday. I love Cole Porter. I mean, it depends on the mood. And I'm
Really?
a big Tchaikovsky fan. I could listen to him all day. So, but do I sing in the car? Yes. And is it usually the Sirius satellite? And it's 70s and 80s. So.
All right. Yeah. Those first few stations, you got the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. Sirius is pretty.
Good.
It's pretty good. Uh, Last question. What is one thing most people agree with, but you do not?
In the business, I think the one thing I had the most trouble with in getting people to understand was co-tenancy. The most retailers follow what I call the bigger idiot theory. Who else is going? Are they going to be there? I can't go unless you find me 5 other people. So what did they do by giving you names of 5 other people? It made those deals more important than your deal. Okay, because because they're probably sitting there doing the same thing. So I'm more of a student of the market. Okay, I put co-tenancy aside because if the market's not right and the customer base isn't right, doesn't resonate with the project you're putting together and putting in retailers, services, food, entertainment that's consistent with what they're looking for, then it doesn't matter. They're not going to succeed. I mean, I could tell you stories about I've sat down and listened to senior real estate executives on the retail side looking at a center and saying, I have to be in that center. Why? Because let's make it because Banana Republic is there.
Right.
Banana Republic, and I'm making this up by the way, but Banana Republic is doing $1.2 million. Why are they doing well? What makes you think you'll do well in a market just because Banana Republic's in there and they're not performing? Well, I still want to be there. I said, what if I have another center and show you something where you'll double your business? Nope. If you don't have Banana Republic, not interested. So that's always been a teaching moment for me to try to get across to our retailer friends. I mean, I set up a real estate strategy department at GGP where we did nothing but analyze markets and analyze trends and demographics, psychographics, and how we came up with models that we could tell you who shops it, and we were able to share that with the retailers. And one thing I will say about retailers, they like data. So the
Yeah.
more data you can give them on these subjective items, the better. So that was probably one of the areas where I differed with a lot of people, and I had to
It's a
not good.
really interesting one because one of the things that I find really fascinating in the business is there's a tale of two cities when it comes to co-tenancy. You have the group that wants all their peers and to be congregated next to them because rising tide lifts all boats. But then you have the other group that wants to restrict everyone and doesn't want anyone
yeah.
who sells anything next to them. So you have this tale of two cities, and that really comes from, I think it comes from the culture of the retailer and your thoughts on competition, right? In the old days, McDonald's went one place and, they did $1.5 million, let's say average. And then, Burger King won across the street. Burger King did like 1.3 and then McDonald's did 1.7. So a rising tide, they created like a burger mecca. But
Right.
today's environment, you get a tale of two cities. You get one where they want to be by everyone in this retail critical mass. And then you get another cohort of retailers that they want to restrict everyone and they want to try to control the marketplace. So I've always found that fascinating by the different mentalities between co-tenancy and getting a vibrant co-tenancy versus and being really strict that you have to be next to certain groups versus well, I don't want to be near them because they're selling the same type of product to, my customer, right? It's very
Exclusives. I mean,
yeah.
We had an issue with Hallmark, because when I was at Old Navy, when we did Old Navy stores, we had a section. We had 100-foot, not 100, a 30-foot section of greeting cards. Well, they went nuts. What do you mean? You're violating our exclusive? Are you telling me this 30 feet's going to impact your business? I can't tell you what we paid to get them to relinquish that. But you're right. I mean, what about there's nothing wrong with having multiple uses that sell similar items. It just brings more people, and competition is good, man. Competition makes you strong. Doesn't make you weak.
Yeah, and it's just fascinating. So the tale of two cities and in that mindset. So, and everyone's got a different one. So when you ended up at General Growth at a really interesting time, right? They were coming out of bankruptcy, and you were coming from the retail side and some consulting. What was your mission outside of just leasing space? And having the team lease space, like what was if you were to put like a 3-pillar strategy, what was Alan trying to bring this company out of bankruptcy? And what was some marching orders? Like what was the strategy at that point? Because it was a big turnaround.
Yeah, look, I think there's a couple of strategic initiatives that I had, and the first had nothing to do with leasing per se, but it was more about getting them to be proud of who they work for, to be proud of the properties and the opportunities that it gives them, so that they had during the time they were in bankruptcy, they were just giving away deals. Okay. And I remember when I was on a Gap and we were looking at doing a General Growth deal, I said, just keep push them and they'll give in. Well, no, I didn't give in. I didn't give instructions to give in at Gap. We have great properties. We spend millions and millions of dollars. God damn it, you're going to be proud of this. If you're not, we're going to take you off and we're going to put you some mall up in North Dakota. Okay.
Right.
So it was getting them to feel good about themselves and feeling good about the properties that they had. That's number one. So I wanted them, it was
Believe in their product.
yeah, and believe in themselves and say, you know what, God damn it, we're going to go out and we're going to get it done. So that's number one. Number two, it was taking a look at what our fleet looked like and where the opportunities were and what we needed to do to set up a leasing and development plan. So myself, our head of development, Rich Pessin, and Sandeep Mithrani and I, we visited 150 malls in 4 months.
Wow.
Okay. And of course, we didn't start at the right end. We started in the end where it was hot and we moved cold. So we never found it, very few days were temperate, but basically here's our strategy. We wanted to see every property. You mentioned in our earlier discussion, can't wait to see the property. So we went out to the properties and we took a look at where are some of the opportunities we have. Long story, and we met as many people as we could. So we, we met people, and at the end of the day, the result of that is we came up with a $3 billion development plan for those centers. Okay. And from that development plan also created, we didn't, General Growth didn't have a leasing strategy. Okay. There was no, so we set up a series of meetings, of monthly meetings, where we did portfolio reviews internally, talking about where the opportunities are, who are some of the potential people we want to go after, and we trace that. So we get, it was important to be specific, to give guidelines and a plan, because there was nothing. Now, once you get used to, adhering to a plan, you can go off plan if you want, but you understand where you want to be.
Yeah.
Right? So that was another major, strategy for us. And the last but not least was to provide a retail perspective to them in their leasing efforts. I'd sit, an example might be, I'm sitting at the real estate meeting, and, the deal maker brings a deal on an expansion. All right. So expansion, they're picking up 50% up more space.
Yep.
And they're only projecting, the deal is only being projected at the same same sales that they're currently doing. So you run the numbers and whoa, stop. Are you telling me that a retail is going to pick up 50% more space and not expect to do more business? I don't want that person in my mall. So you go back and you tell them, no, if you want this 50%, we'll come up with a fair rent, but it's going to anticipate what you're going to do, because we had our financial goals and they had theirs. And I know I was on the other side. I know what they do. It's BS. So that's just an example. But the other thing is part of that is trying to instill in them the need to understand as much about the retailer as you do your property. It is important, because people, if you have to listen to what's being said, you can solve many problems sometimes without additional rent. It might be marketing. It could be a number of different things, but understand what makes them click. Okay. Don't go after a Michael Kors in a center that they don't have a snowball's chance in hell to succeed, because the market's not right for them.
Right.
Or don't bring a space that's so lousy and be proud of yourself that I got this tenant to take this space. Well, do you think this tenant's going to succeed in this space? Well, I don't know. So you know what's going to happen? I'm going to have a closed store in 3 years or 4 years. We're going to have to worry about how do we release it again. Don't do the deal. The best deals you do are the deals you don't do, quite honestly. Do it if it's right. We built the other thing we did just overall is we spent a lot of money building a culture. We went outside, we developed words to live by, we dealt with behavioral issues that we wanted our people to express, etc. Do the right thing is very important. Do the right thing might be don't do the deal. I killed deals that were brought to me because it wasn't right for them. And I don't need a problem. I'd rather nip it in the bud. Find something else. Something else will pop up.
Fantastic. I, I, I really like the first point, and you said it first, which is to be proud of the properties. And I say believing in what you have sometimes and believe in yourself. I think, all too often, sometimes, the first inkling is to think about the assets and not think about like believing in yourself and believing in what you have. And so I think it was a really, really good perspective that you had, and a really interesting strategy that you went to implement. So, love hearing those, that business strategy. The next piece I want to bring us to is I want to bring us to a story, and you have a story about Apple and Cumberland Mall. So,
Right.
yours.
Okay. So I'll try to keep this short, but direct to the point. Cumberland Mall is in the northwest part of Atlanta. It's right off Route 285, which is the perimeter.
Sure.
Prior to the Chapter 11, GGP had spent about $75 million to renovate it. Okay, but they spent almost zero money leasing it. There was no because there was no respect. There was no respect for the customer. Okay, so there was a lot of temporary tenants. There was this and that, and I lived 7 miles from there, and I know the market. It's a very diverse market. All right, but there are, but it's great access and it's a great customer. So I said to myself, what do we need to do? And it's doing about $347 a foot, give or take. I don't want to exaggerate. And this is back in 2011. So I said, okay. So I came up with sort of like a 2-pronged attack. The first prong was, how do I convince Apple to come here? Because Apple was in Lenox Mall,
Sure.
and they were Perimeter Mall. Now, the one thing you need to know about Atlanta is on the weekends and at nights, traffic is horrible. So what may appear to be close on paper, it's not. So once again, knowing the communities like Vinings that was center was right on top of, and the customer base that was there, I had my real estate strategy group put together a whole presentation that we were going to sit down with Apple and try to convince them that based on what they look for, Cumberland Mall addresses. Forget the tenants in there. Okay. I'll get back to that in a second. The second prong of the attack was, I know I need to bring some marquee tenants here. Now, we already had Victoria's Secret that was doing very well. We had American Eagle that was doing very well. We had H&M that was doing outstanding. Forever 21 was doing well. But everything else looked like horrible. Okay. So I got pretty close. I had a good relationship with my buddy over at Michael Kors. And I said, listen, man, this is your customer. He says, I know, but every time I walk by, I don't see her. This is your customer. So I said to him, look, we'll do a deal. I'll be very, protect you. I only benefit if you do very well. Okay. That was a long story short to a long negotiation.
Right.
But I got him to agree. Then I went to my friend over at Sephora. And I said, who's your customer? Well, your customer's here. Went through the same gyration. I got her to say yes. Speed forward. When Michael Kors opened, he exceeded their projected sale by about 45%. And they're very happy. Still there. And Sephora, she said, Alan, I'd never really say this, but you were right. Well, to tell you the truth, I'm married a long time. I don't hear that a lot, so I'm going to appreciate that. Okay. So now we had two at the time premier tenants, and we went back to Apple, who was still studying the market. I was saying, by the way, here's the numbers that are of the tenants who were here that you enjoy being with, and here's two tenants that you might not think would be here, but they are, and they're both doing very well. So they took a look at it, and we were able first, and I respect them for this. They appreciated the analysis we did on the market, the customer, et cetera. And based on where they were in the market, they felt this was a viable opportunity. To their credit also, the fact that we got Michael Kors and Sephora, nice, but that's not what did it. So
that's your co-tenancy piece that you were talking about before.
Right. And then, but what happened then is where Victoria's Secret was on the second floor, they came down to the first and renovated, did a whole new store. Bath and Body did a whole new store. I mean, so people got excited, and we added other tenants there. The mall's doing $671 a foot.
Wow. All
right. Now you take away the Apple factor. They were doing about $30 million there. You take away the Apple, and it's probably somewhere around 510, 520. So 510, 520 from 347.
Wow, that's really good. That's really
great. So that probably had the biggest impact. And it cost me, it cost TA, but that's the other thing I found out about being on the landlord side. As the years go by, where landlords were always very tight on TA, now they look at it as an investment. How much, if I give you $100,000, what am I going to get in return, in rent? Do I get a 10% return, 15, whatever? So Sandeep always, he used to break my chops. He says, "Oh, so you adopted that mall? What other mall are you going to adopt?" And I said, "You know what? I'll let other people. I showed the way. I'm just going to watch and go from there." So
Eh, that's terrific. How long of a process was it to get Apple convinced to come?
oh, 2 years,
2 years.
2 years, because we had to get get some of the leasing improved. Plus, they're very slow. They're very deliberate. You then, unless it's a slam bam home run that it's on their hit list, uh, they they're very deliberate in their decision making, and that's why the majority of them, they generate the kind of business they do, and they go from there.
Yeah. Plus the brand, they've got more brand cachet than
Uh
most people in the world,
Forget it.
obviously. I- One of the things I find interesting, you take over head of leasing at General Growth, and one of the properties, you're overseeing a large leasing team. How many people were on the leasing team when you were there?
Oh, deal makers around the country, we probably had something like 60 deal makers around the country,
Okay.
because we had 150 malls. And so you divide it maybe 2 to 3 malls per retail. But we also got into street retail. We got into Manhattan retailing. We had 3 buildings that we bought in partnership with some of the guys in New York, which took a lot of time and effort. And we were talking about rents that um, were just not sustainable there. But that was another story for another day.
Yeah. Well, so you have 150 malls. To Sandeep's point, why did you adopt Cumberland Mall for you? You had 60 deal makers. What got you, focused on that? Was that part of a larger strategy, or was that something like, man, I just see so much opportunity here. I
I
know
live I live 7 miles from there.
right.
7 miles. And it's got a Costco. It had a Costco right next to it on the same tax parcel that was doing $100 million. Okay. So, and there are people there. You just got to treat people with respect. You treat them with respect, they will act accordingly. And that was the underlying theme through this whole process. And the fact that it was close to me, I could go visit it every day with them whenever I was home. And I did. My office, I had an office there. Okay, my office in Chicago, and then when I was in Chicago, my wife stayed in Atlanta from October till the end of March, and I was still in Chicago. We rented a place, and from April to October, she'd come spend the time in Chicago. So that was home for me, and I had an office there, and it worked out. It worked out well.
The Apple's still there today.
Oh, sure.
That, that,
Yeah.
that's terrific. And so, great story. Uh, the last piece I think that I want to talk about is, you have an interesting lens today. You're retired, but you're a student of retail. You're a student of commercial real estate. What's top of mind for you as it relates to retail today?
I think we're coming. I think we're coming out of a very interesting experience, under the pandemic, where stores were closed, malls were closed, people got used to shopping online. All right, and so now those doors have been opened, and what you're faced with a couple of things. Number one, and not in any particular order, but customers want to get out. They've got money. A lot of them got their checks from the government, or if they didn't go anywhere, so they saved a lot. Some people moved. Some people are remodeling. Some people just want to get out and touch and feel and breathe.
Yeah.
So you've got a customer base now that is changing. They're still buying online, but they're also, if you build the right thing and give them the right offering, they'll come out. When the restaurants start to open up, you'll see more of that. The entertainment. It's kind of funny that before the pandemic, and for about a year or 18 months before that, if you remember, the landlords were looking at building more entertainment, more food, more
That's right.
health, you know? So when you think about what are the uses, so they opened them. And guess what? What are the uses that were impacted most by the
Oh,
pandemic?
totally.
Health, entertainment, food. So now you've got people who stopped building or people went out of business. So the retail world has got to get healthy again. And I think you're seeing some of it. I think you're seeing some of the traditional, or I call legacy retailers out there that are doing some things to try to make their brand a little bit more attractive. You take somebody like American Eagle, all right, who's I've got a lot of good friends over there. They are, in my mind, they are the best ready to wear brand out there that addresses the teen and post-teen and the younger generation. Right now, denim is on the rise again. Okay, people are buying more denim, and denim in many cases was the factor that lifted a lot of retailers for a long time. Okay, so American Eagle I think is going to do well, but what they've got Aerie that is exploded
Yeah.
and continues to explode. But
So
they
on
just came
trend, Airy.
right. So now they came up with another concept, which is, let me just get my notes so I say it the right way. Offline. Offline is their activewear, and they've opened up 4 or 5 stores, and that's doing well. So they're trying to sustain their core their core message, and they're opening other businesses to support it. Lululemon, they've increased their menswear business, but they came up with Mira, which is a crazy concept, but it's a mirror that you buy, and
Yeah.
there's an avatar in there that works out with you. I mean, but it did, it's going to do like $400 million.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got that. You've got people like Abercrombie, Gilly Hicks. Now, Gilly Hicks was something they started years ago and it failed. It was their answer to Victoria's Secret, but they're bringing it back.
Yeah.
And it's starting to open up some stores. And last but not least, my old company, Gap, who can't get arrested half the time. But they're closing more Gap stores. I think they said they're going to close another 350 Gap within the next 2 years. But where the Gap is right now, it's Old Navy and it's Athleta, and they were very timid about increasing the Athleta opens, but now that's changed. In fact, I understand they're going into Canada now.
Yeah.
So that's good. So you got some of the traditional people out there who are constantly looking to redefine, to not redefine, but to come up with different offerings to the customers so that they can offer a different experience to them. So that's something you see out there. And then the value in the off price. I don't know when the last time you were not off Five Below. I think that's a great store.
Yeah.
Okay. It's well merchandised. It's neat. There's always somebody there to help you. So that whether it's the, Five Below or it's the dollar store, et cetera, people look for that. TJ Maxx with their home store, creating that treasure hunt.
Yeah.
So you've got this. So these are little nuances that I think people can't get that when they're sitting home buying something offline. So I think that's going to be important that retailers start to continue to do to come up with ways to offer a different experience to the customer. The challenges, quite honestly, I think malls are dead. Malls are dead. Malls are dead. There are 1,100 malls, and malls are dead. Well, I will tell you that 1,100 number is 10 years old. Okay. There aren't 1,100 malls. There may be 600 malls, but the point is there should only be 250 malls. And maybe you'll get to that point, at this point, because the department stores haven't done anything that other than, Dillard's is doing really well, but Macy's, Nordstrom's is opening more racks then they're not even opening up new Nordstrom stores anymore. So the department stores aren't as important as they used to be, but the retailers are starting, the landlords are starting to look at malls and coming up with different uses. They're trying to make that the center of town, the town hall, so to speak. So I think the A and A plus centers are going to be fine. I think you're going to see fallout in B and C centers. I think you're going to see demolition. If you've got an empty, a vacant department store, if Amazon doesn't take it as a fulfillment center, all right, demo it because it looks horrible. Okay, put a garden in there, do something. But I think you're going to see more demolition because there's one thing you can't say. Malls have great locations wherever they are. They've got great access in the market. Maybe it becomes, who knows? It could be a hospital. It could be something else. But I think you'll see more. I think you'll see more of that. The rent. Like in New York, the street retail. I was talking to somebody the other day about Manhattan. It's still it's starting to come about, but look at all the vacancies that are there. And people, what are people going to be asking for? You're going to have people who want to be there because I know I talked to a couple of retailers who are talking about doing business again in Manhattan because they know if they wait a year, the rent's going to go up. All right. But are the landlords smart enough? There's an expression, a chaza, and to quote Al Pacino in Scarface, do you know what a chaza is? A chaza is a pig. Okay. So if the landlords in the city, this in Manhattan, which I don't think they're any different around the country, do what you can, get the stores open. Okay. Don't be a pig. You're going to get a lot of rent. And make it easier for a retailer to succeed in Manhattan. When we were doing retail leasing, when we were leasing our buildings in General Growth, you couldn't make money at a 20% occupancy. All right, because we were asking for rents that, based on their sales, would have been 25 and 30%. How do you make money? You don't. Okay, but you have a vacant space that's not generating anything. So I think landlords, whether they're in street locations or even in the development world, malls or power centers, whatever, get retailers open. There are people out there who want to open businesses. Make it easier for them. And the other thing is, make it easy for some of these new concepts, these online businesses that want to go brick and mortar, because they know for scale purposes they have to. Their cost right now to stay online only is something like 27, 28% for the dollar. Most of it is transportation, marketing, et cetera. But make it easy for them. If one of these businesses comes to you, don't stick them in the corner. Put them in a location where they'll succeed. Work out a deal that'll let them be successful if their business is there. Because going into any retail venue, the more stores that are open and operating, there will be a vitality in that center that we haven't seen in many years. So
that was a lot. I'm going to unpack some of it. I'm going to throw a couple challenges at you a little bit.
Go ahead.
All right. So one, you've said, and I think old school landlord, but you've said don't put that tenant in the corner. You said that a couple times. You said that previously, that you killed some of those deals. But you have vacant real estate and you have to lease it. Who should go in the corner? If it's not the new hot concept, somebody needs to go in the corner.
Somebody does. Or how else can you use that corner? Do you set it up as a community room? You're right. I mean, if you've got so much space, anything I get is right. But don't. It depends on who the retailer is. Okay,
Sure.
It really does, and depends on what the use is. But don't try to do anything you can to make it a profit potential. So if you want to put them in that corner, maybe it's not rent. Maybe it's a strictly percentage rent deal. And maybe it's a low percentage rent until they hit a certain sales threshold, then it goes up or whatever. Make it so that they can be profitable. Don't just sit there. I had a deal maker come to me once when we approved the deal. It was a lousy location in Water Tower. They were a Mexican company. They paid us something like $400 a foot for a 1,500, not even 1,200 square foot space. Okay, horrible space. She was so proud. They lasted 3 weeks. You know how long that space was vacant? Like 3 years. So what did we do? We just, you know. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I think it's not as simple. I understand the same.
Sure. I think what you're getting to is placemaking matters, right? And there are certain uses that do well and help the landlord, but the business does really well that might not be front and center locations where some retail concepts need. So that's how I would characterize it. The next thing I would say on the challenging piece, I think we all want to help incubate retail. Sometimes, though, I would say there's a depends here, because that one of the problems in New York City, a lot of those landlords, they purchase the building at a price where if they do the rent that somebody wants, they might as well throw the keys back to the lender because they're not going to make it. And so I think your basis in the property matters, right? Sometimes if I have to make that deal, I'm losing. I'm never going to make money. Maybe I made a bad purchase. That's true. Might have made a bad purchase, but if I'm better off trying to take a shot to find a little bit of a unicorn, because if I lock myself into this, then I'm guaranteeing that I'm toast. And so I don't want to guarantee that I'm toast.
Yeah, what you're saying, it makes sense. But I would say this, that if right now they purchased it and they need to get X amount of rent, the space is vacant. You're not getting any rent out of it. You find a tenant, you put them in there. Anything you get from them will help you. Okay. As the deal is structured, if it's structured in a way that you get something and you get more than you would be getting right now, and that if they are successful, you get more, maybe it's an increasing percentage. Who knows? Instead of just doing the traditional triple net deal and saying it's rent, taxes, and we go from there and we'll see how you do. I think there's got to be some thought behind what you can do to mitigate your risk, but also allow for the retailer to succeed.
Yeah, I would characterize it as we, in a new world order, we all need to get collaborative and creative on deal structure. I think that's fair. Historically, what I found is the retailers, whether they're new or legacy, that are continuing to grow, well, their business model is long-term leases at fixed rents. They want to do the base rent, triple net taxes, because you want to lock in your rent, right? You want to lock in 5 years worth of fixed rent, because as sales grow, now you're locked in, you fix your costs. The worst thing you can do in that regard is have variable cost structure. Whereas someone who's unproven, not sure if they're going to go up or down and wants to protect their downside, well, that business is probably looking for a variable cost structure because of that, right? But, right now, I'm sure I'm not in city retail. I'm in suburban, much like the majority of the GGP portfolio was. But, I know in the Great Recession, we had a lot of box retailers that we were doing business with, and they were trying to lock in, occupancy costs for long periods of time because they saw the forest for the trees and they saw the economy going up, and they didn't want to have to pay 2013 rents in 2011. And to that end, they locked it in. They made great business decisions, and having a variable cost structure would have hurt them pretty bad. So I think the business model matters tremendously, right? Because if you
100%,
right, so
100%. I think there are very few original ideas in this business. There really is. And as far as deal making, as a deal maker, I'm sure in deal making, during your career, you came up with a very creative deal. Okay. And then as I did. So the question is, how many times did we try to duplicate that? Okay. Whether it made sense or not. Okay. Or how many times did people look, oh, that got approved, so I'm going to do it. The key is to sit back and say, what's the right deal? What do we need to do to make this deal successful? And too many people just it's a fallback. They just do the deal and do the deal and do the same deal structure, whether it's right or wrong. You have to sit back and look at that.
Okay. I've got one more question before we go to the final part of the show.
Yes.
I'm going to make it 2 because I don't want to end on a negative. What's concerning you the most about our industry right now?
Right now, I think it's it has nothing to do with the industry, but it's the economy and where we're going, and when will the bubble burst? People are getting, and this isn't political. This is just, I think it's common sense. People are getting, they're getting some help from the government right now, but that's not going to happen. It's not going to be there forever. And there's inflation we have to worry about. There's supply issues we have to worry about. So I think it's all of those non-retail issues that are impacting the economy that are going to have a negative impact. It's going to be a while before we get out of it.
I hope you're wrong, but
So do I. That's what I'm
hear
afraid.
you.
Yes, what I'm afraid of.
I know.
That's what I'm afraid of.
I hear you. If I were to answer that, I would right now, construction costs are a real challenge,
Right.
especially in, if you're in a market where rents aren't growing and construction costs are rising everywhere, that's really a challenge. So even to do some basic base building work is more costly. And that $75 million renovation that GGP did today, that's, $175 million renovation. That's problematic. So what are you most excited about our industry right now?
I like some of the new concepts that are out there, and whether it's Casper, the betting company. I think that's great. I like, Warby Parker's been around for a while. You can't say they're new. They continue to reinvent who they are, and so there's still a lot of new businesses. There's still a lot of entrepreneurs out there that are trying to do things a little bit differently. And I think that as an industry, we have to embrace them more. Okay, and I forget where I saw this, but somebody put together, they built an area specifically for new retail concepts. Wasn't at the end next to Sears. It was on the 45-yard line. Okay. And it kept rotating, giving people chances to experiment, et cetera. So I think there's going to be some exciting things out there for a customer to experience. I think people now understand they have to do things a little differently. It's a question of will they? Because, when you're running the race, at some point you get a little confident, then you fall back to old habits. So, but I think the rumors of the death of this business have been greatly exaggerated. I mean, I went through it in late 80s. I think it's the late 80s, and parts of the 90s and 2006, 5, 6, 7. Death. We're resilient. The one thing I've always, you asked me about the landlord side versus the retail side. I've never seen more optimistic people than there are on the landlord side. Okay, there's always a reason to do something. There's always a reason to spend money. There's always a reason to make the dreams that they have, and when they build it, it's a reality. So I think that hasn't stopped. That's still there.
That's a great point. Okay. Last part of the show. I call it retail wisdom. I've got 3 questions for you. They're fun questions. Are you ready?
Go ahead.
All right. Question 1. What extinct retailer do you wish would come back from the dead?
Walden Books.
Oh.
Not that it's the classification. You could call it Walden, but a smaller bookstore. People still read books now, and I think there's things you would put in that bookstore today that you wouldn't with Walden, but maybe they would. You can have a cafe. You can have a community room, right? Someplace to go in and touch and feel books. Okay.
Question 2.
And as a New Yorker, Modell's sporting goods.
There you go.
If you're a home team, you walk through that store.
Totally have.
You always have to spend money. Sorry about that.
No, that's good. Question 2. What is the last item over $20 you purchased in a store?
It was in the Apple store.
Okay.
And I had bought a charging block
I've seen them.
because now they're different. And I had to get the cables to go with that.
Yeah.
And it was kind of interesting because I looked and it said, I've got a lifetime guarantee on that. But I don't have a lifetime guarantee that they're not going to change the head again, or they're not going to change the block, and I'm going to have to buy something different in 3 years.
Yeah.
These guys, they're amazing, but that was what I bought.
Totally. Yeah. We've all gone through. I remember when they made the big switch from the wire when it was wide and a fat
Right, yeah.
little skinny. Yeah, that was a big deal. All right. Last question. If you and I went shopping at Target and I lost you, what aisle would I find you in?
Electronics,
Electronics. Okay.
TVs, radios, music, gadgets. I love that stuff.
All right. Well, Alan, this was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me. I
Really appreciate it.
It's been fun.
It has been fun. This was terrific. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you. Stay well.
You too. I'll be in touch. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Did you get any strawberries? What do you mean, yeah?
I have already bought strawberries.
I know. Did she bring you the key? Jesus Christ, what a dummy.
She didn't tell me this. I really.
No, it's not your fault. Thank you for the key and the Porsche key and the mail key. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sweetheart. Oh, thank you, sweetheart.
They did it there.
What?
I made it to Mom.
You were okay. So do me a favor. Make sure Philly has it when I meet them at the lacrosse game.
Okay, what do you need it to? You have a key to your car.
I need a key for Mom.
She's not driving your car anytime soon.
She's driven this car,
Yeah, but you're acting like it's an emergency.
and I'd like to have a key. It's not an emergency. How long have we been back? 2 weeks? Or 1 week? 1 week. See, it seems like forever. Moron. Are your kids in the car?
Yeah.
Oh, I have to be nice to you then.
Fantastic.
I love you, honey.
I love you, Dad.
Did you pick me any strawberries?
I gave some to Mom.
Oh.
I'm between you and a nursing home. Don't you remember that?
What's that?
I'm standing between you and a nursing home.
Me and a nursing home. Hey, we found a house that has a mother-daughter.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Oh no, it's closer to Walker.
But it's not Walton.
It's not Walton? Okay. Why does it have to be Walton?
Because if we're gonna do this to send like a policy trailers off.
Ah, okay. All right, got it.
To find us a mother-daughter in Walton. What's my price range, Robert? Okay.
To what?
What's my price range?
I don't know. What's the price range?
Okay.
What did the Yenta say?
He told me to put my phone down while driving.
Okay. All right. You had a good time?
Yes.
All right, good. Good. All right, honey. Love you. Bye, Finley. Go Hawks. Yeah, go Hawks. You're right. We're on the same side. All right. Take care. Ugh.
Appreciate you watching. Hit subscribe. See you in the next one.